And that brings us to our opening keynote presentation this morning. Now, you want to hire the best talent for the job, increase diversity, and you also want to offer a great candidate experience that attracts the right people. However, this can all be quite challenging. So how can AI really help you fill roles faster with qualified candidates that doesn't break the bank? That's what we'll be talking about. We have TC Olsen, Head of Acquisition over at LKQ Corporation, here to share his story. And we also welcome to the stage Andrea Shiah, Head of Talent Strategy and Transformation over at Eightfold. So it's a pleasure to have them. Let's see where they are and hear from them. So, Andrea and TC, there you are. Welcome. Good morning.
Hi, Christine. Nice to see you. Great to be here.
Yes,
hey,
great
good morning,
to have
Christine.
you. Good morning. First want to ask you, TC, where are you calling in from? It's looking quite dark behind you.
I am in the great city of Las Vegas today.
Very nice.
LKQ is an automotive company, and we are at SEMA this year, the SEMA show.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us this morning. Andrea, before I hand it off to you, prior to joining Eightfold, you actually had a 25-year career, very impressive, over at American Express, where you actually led many transformation initiatives. My question to you is, was Amex leveraging this type of technology to hire for potential?
Yeah, absolutely. While I was at American Express, I led a transformation of talent acquisition for 2.5 years. And Eightfold AI was one of the solutions we implemented. I saw the impact it brought and made a decision to join them. Yes.
That is fantastic. Well, excited to hear your story, Andrea. I will give you the floor.
Great. So we're going to get started. TC, I just want to thank you for joining us today. I know it's a really busy time of the year. I think you're a real innovator in this space. And I'm really excited to kind of really unveil the great insights that you can share with the audience today. So why don't we go ahead and get started with just a really fundamental question here, which is, what was the need that LKQ had that led you to seek out and implement Eightfold AI?
Oh, thanks. Great question. I think when you look back and just as you've seen the evolution of recruiting and talent acquisition as a whole, LKQ has kind of traditionally been a very post and pray type of organization. A lot of candidate flow when it comes back to ultimately putting our positions out there on job boards, on social media, and really just driving flow as much as possible. Well, I think we've all seen the decline in applicant flow and the need to go out and truly strategically pull our talent into the organization. And we've done that. We've had that complex need where the shifting in candidate behavior is really kind of led us down the path of leveraging a platform such as Eightfold. And obviously, it's a very intuitive candidate experience, which I think we all know is almost number one when it comes to the candidate's appetite to even apply for a job today.
That's great. I think if I think about Eightfold and what it does for LKQ and the AI intelligence, can maybe you just talk a little bit more about that and what exactly it is and how it's impacting your talent acquisition process?
Sure. So talent acquisition is still relatively new to the organization through our growth model, which has traditionally been an acquisition model. We've pulled in a lot of talent just traditionally through that type of growth. But as we've seen more and more shifting in consumer behavior, we've gone back to this platform to ultimately be able to extract profiles out of our very cumbersome and outdated ATS that we currently have today. With that, allowing not just the AI to do some of our matching for us within the CRM component, but also allowing it to provide a little bit more of a candidate first experience, whether that is through our re-engagement campaigns that we are now able to run pretty efficiently, or that's through our new kind of drip types of campaigns that we run on our candidates quite frequently.
That's great. So what I'm hearing you talk a little bit about is, the AI kind of unlocks your ATS database, the prior applicants that you have. And then you're also able to leverage it for CRM in a really targeted way against, I guess, what you could call are warmed leads, in your ATS database. That sounds really powerful. I'm curious too, as you kind of think through the rest of your recruiting process, like what other impacts have you seen? So that's really powerful from the standpoint of sourcing and engaging and identifying really strong talent. Are there other parts of the recruiting process that you've seen the impacts?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think one thing too, I definitely don't want to gloss over, LKQ, because of the acquisitions, because of the growth, we have a lot of brands, and those brands in some situations do operate as their own entity. Whereas for our centralized talent acquisition team, we're recruiting for all brands. So as we leverage Eightfold's personalized career site, as well as extract that data from our ATS, we are able to allow our brand to engage with our candidates. And I think the biggest part about this, and you mentioned this too, is the warm leads, right? That ATS is full of our people. They're full of people that know who the company is. And I think that's something for us that does turn that conversation, does kind of drive the percentage of responding candidates back to us. It kind of drives that a little bit more because it is our applicant pool. But when I look at the capabilities of the platform, it's allowing us to really enhance the quality of candidates that we are pulling into the organization. As many of companies in North America or globally, for that matter, have experienced a little bit more of a decline in applicant flow, it's ultimately important for us to ensure that the ones that are making it in front of our managers are quality hires. Just since the implementation, we've been able to enhance that percentage pretty significantly. And I think a lot of that has to do with the matching in the platform. A lot of it has to do with Eightfold kind of driving more and more emphasis on the right candidate versus here is the first candidate. And we all know in some situations that's not the case. So I think that the quality of hire is something that's been extremely important to us, especially as there's less candidates to choose from, and ultimately making sure that we put the right ones in front of our hiring managers as possible.
Yeah, that's great. So just, for the audience, there's a little bit more context on Eightfold and what it does. And I'm curious to hear more about how this shows up for you. But Eightfold has, extensive data on the workforce. Actually, we have 1.5 million data sets on workers, and that's half the world's workforce, actually. And we use that to get the insights on jobs, skills, companies, even geographies, whether it's cities or countries. And we can see movement of workers across jobs and the skills that they acquire. So we have a huge amount of intelligence about individuals and the job titles that they've had and the skills they bring and even their potential. And we're able to take that and apply that to your ATS database. And so information, I think TC, and I'd love to kind of hear more about this. So the information you've always had in your ATS database is typically hard to access because it's very manual. It comes to life with that intelligence when Eightfold is integrated. And so I'm just curious, did you find that intelligence to be really accurate and really having an impact on your hiring leaders and the strength of the matches?
I think you said it. It brought that old data to life, and it does that through not just the data points that it's pulling off of, but I think it does it through all of the newer content that's out there today, right? Some of the profiles in the old ATS were pretty outdated. As we bolted this onto the applicant tracking system, we're really able to tell the story of the candidate. they may have had some changes since they first applied with us. And obviously with the enrichment of that data, we're able to truly see if they are going to be a qualified candidate for us. A lot of things have happened in the past couple of years, and many of them may have changed jobs or may have become more of a quality applicant for us. And we wanted to make sure we leveraged those enriched profiles to continue to drive the quality of hire for us.
That's great. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the impact has been for LKQ as you've implemented Eightfold?
Absolutely. It was almost like a light switch, to be completely transparent. Obviously, our re-engagement campaigns, we were really able to go back to some of those profiles, and obviously through the integration with the ATS, extract them almost immediately. And it's real-time data. Now as we are engaging with applicants from the past, we're really able to enhance the quality. I keep going back to quality because I think that's probably one of the most powerful pieces. Looking at some of the topics of the past day or two, really understanding how does quality of hire influence retention? How does it influence turnover? And I think when you go back to some of these old profiles and really start to enrich them with the AI, it allows us to make a much more educated decision based on exactly what we know from the new enriched profile that Eightfold provides us.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And so, what has been the reception of your hiring leaders? I'm curious to hear a little bit about that.
It's definitely something that we're still in the early phases of. The whole goal with talent acquisition for LKQ is to tell the story, right? To articulate exactly what it is we're seeing on a daily basis. As many hiring leaders, and you're right, this time of year is a pretty busy one, trying to forecast for the coming year. But some of those hiring leaders, very, very similar constraints. That's people. That is the lack of people. And, the ability to hire is obviously become a little bit more complex. But I think our leaders are extremely bought in when it comes to thinking outside of the box, leveraging technology to ultimately create some efficiencies in our processes. And oh, by the way, tell that story. I think that's what a lot of them, it makes our job a little bit easier when it comes to here's exactly what we did. Here's how we filled the funnel. And, some of the data, I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, some of the data that we're able to articulate now is much more complex as to what many folks are talking about. There's a major diversity aspect to the platform that really allows us to continue to diversify our organization. It also allows us to truly see the main points that we have within the company, within our own talent pool internally. And I think that's the other piece. We're really in this first phase of our partnership with Eightfold. And as we're able to articulate the successes, and we've seen them almost immediately, to continue to enhance and kind of build out what the partnership looks like is going to be almost inevitable. As we start to open up more and more internal mobility and giving our current environment the ability to move either cross-functionally, cross different lines of business, and even into maybe some reskilled realignment types of programs.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great to hear. I know that we've all in talent acquisition just gone through just a crazy time period. I think back in March, April of last year, there was a dramatic tapering off of jobs. Actually, many companies froze their hiring, just trying to understand what was coming up with the pandemic. And I've seen data that basically says within 9 months, we hit January and the hiring demand just hit all of us out of the gate. There's no slow ramp up at all. As a matter of fact, I've seen charts about other economic recessions that we've had, and this is like the shortest one with the biggest pivot that we've ever seen. And so with that ramp up, I think for all of us, we've experienced a lot of demand in jobs and hiring. And I'm curious, about Eightfold and whether it's played a role in efficiencies and your ability to manage that demand.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, the past 18, 19 months have been just a whirlwind of differences. We've gone from a health crisis to a social crisis, an economic crisis. We're obviously all experiencing supply chain issues. A lot of the main variable in this is people. And that is, obviously for us, we have a mentality, we have a people first mentality. And, as we've continued to navigate these very choppy waters, we've looked for those efficiencies. We've looked for operational excellence types of processes to truly be able to continue to drive revenue, continue to drive the business. Um, for us as an organization, we're a heavy non-exempt, heavy hourly workforce. And so as you look at what the market has done, that population has really been the ones that have been probably the most affected. Now you see that shift from an employer-driven market to more of that candidate-driven market, or a changing of tides per se. And it's much more important for us, not just as an organization, but as a global population, to continue to put those individuals, those future workers first. And I think that's what a lot of employers are finding out today is you can't just expect candidates to come to you anymore. You really have to give them a soft landing place. You have to give them a little bit more of an incentive to work for you. In many situations, that's culture. And I think for what we've done as an organization and tried to drive the importance on culture and mitigate burnout. I heard burnout thrown out there in the introduction. It's definitely a major disruptor, and it's not just us. It's to everyone. We've done a lot with less over the past 18, 19 months. We've had some pretty financially strong quarters, and none of those things are possible without our people. And I think that to me is probably one of the most exciting things about the organization is, at the end of the day, we're a recycler. And as ESG has become a little bit more of a major initiative for organizations, that's been our narrative since 1998 when the company was founded. And that doesn't happen without our people. So all of those things to say, it's we're definitely experiencing the changing of tides. Our leadership is bought into evolving with not just what's happening socially, but also as we're seeing more and more catastrophes happen throughout the world, and navigating those while still operating the business.
That's great. There were two things you mentioned I wanted to kind of double click on. You talked about hourly workers. And I know I've talked to a lot of people who've asked me questions about how effective is AI with hourly workers. And so I'd love to hear more about kind of how you leveraged Eightfold with hourly workers.
Sure. Yeah, definitely a heavy hourly workforce for us as an organization. And a lot of that is we are a wholesale distributor of recycled auto parts. And so you think about transportation, you think about some of the pieces that are main components within our process. The hourly workforce is one that some experts think is shrinking. And that is because we're in a gig economy. There are different ways to ultimately produce revenue for yourself as an individual. You look at some of the ride share types of opportunities that many people have. What we've been able to do with our workforce is truly enhance their experience with our organization before we ever engage with them. Open up some opportunities for not just our brand to interact with them and really be able to kind of enhance their experience, but also be able to drive them to the right position. We typically call it our big five openings. And those are volume openings that not just us, but many other organizations have. So the competition level is extremely elevated. To ultimately get a candidate through our process, through our hiring process as quickly as possible is really one of the things that we've leveraged with Eightfold, and we're continuing to optimize as we learn more and more. not just about the partnership between companies, but really that symmetry between the two platforms. So I think that's a pretty important aspect. A lot of what we've done digitally is put our realistic job previews out on the actual description or the posting per se for that role. So our delivery drivers, they see the day in the life of a delivery driver. Our automotive mechanics, they see a day in the life before we ever engage with them. I think that's ultimately another massive, massive win, not just for us, but really for the candidates, right? We ultimately want to continue to drive that quality of hire. And if the role is just not right for them, I think it's important for them to ultimately make that.
Oh, do we
Yeah,
lose
looks
TC?
like we may have. But, Andrea, love
He's,
to just get your thoughts, though, on his story. What's resonating with you, and how else are you guys helping other organizations really recruit top talent?
yeah, I love his story. Just because I think he would, when he's able to rejoin us, you can hear it's had a lot of impact, especially in this environment. Has helped them a lot. So the intelligence and insights that Eightfold brings, that I talked about earlier, integrated with their ATS platform, has helped them really develop a CRM. Really for their warm leads in their ATS database. As you can see, they're able to identify them. They're able to proactively show them about their jobs, which TC, I see you just joined us. I think that's brilliant. I think with hourly workers, that tends to be really a lot of short-term attrition happens. And so if you can set the right expectation for jobs, I love what you've done.
It's definitely a journey. And, I think we're just in the beginning phases of it, but excited about the future, excited about where we're headed, not just with the platform, but as an organization as well.
Yeah. There was one other comment you shared earlier that diversity is important to LKQ, and you've also leveraged the AI and made efforts to improve that. And so I'd love to hear more about kind of how you've done that and what role AI has played in that.
Absolutely. I think a lot of it is just awareness and, understanding our population, not just of internal employees, but also understanding who's interested in the company, who's interested in being a part of the organization. And, ultimately filling the funnel with diverse candidates, I think is going to be a major aspect as we continue to evolve as a company. But not knowing or not even understanding some of the components within diversity, I think was almost unseen for us in the technology stack that we had prior to rolling Eightfold out. So it's the creating awareness, I think, is at least our first step towards what is going to be an evolution for us as an organization. And the automotive industry is relatively diverse as it is, but as you look at certain roles within not just our industry, but a little bit more specifically to market, we're able to truly enhance not just their journey to becoming an employee for us, but also the engagement once they do become an employee. Um, many folks learn differently, and we're exploring the fact that as we engage with those new employees, how do we engage with them a little bit more specific as in terms of culturally how they learn, whether they learn through certain aspects of online learning. The shift in demographics, I think, is another major component for us, where our workforce is kind of changing a little bit. And that automotive mechanic looks a little bit different now, and not necessarily on the surface, but more of from a knowledge perspective. And as we're leveraging the platform to ultimately understand more about who our particular candidates are, we're also using that to take that back to our educational partnerships that we have that feed into the organization as well.
Yeah. I love that point about auto mechanics that you're making. I think that applies to almost every job.
Mm.
I think the shelf life of skills is getting like shorter and shorter, especially as we get into more and more digital world. So you've been able to leverage that type of emerging skills and take a look at your candidates with that lens.
I think we're definitely in the early
Oh,
it's ultimately going to allow us to make better decisions as an organization. So, that talent pool is shrinking. And for us as a company, we have good tenure when it comes to those types of workers. Now we're trying to ultimately leverage their knowledge to share with our new employees as we run through some realignment, reskilling types of programs.
that's great. So TC, I can hear just this has been a great conversation. I think you've touched on all the areas that the AI and insight on skills. I just like to highlight that because I was always trying to figure out like I was really excited when I implemented Eightfold about the matching, the fact that my recruiters would be able to kind of identify the candidates and match them. But I think when we went live with Eightfold, as you said, all of a sudden everything was enabled across the entire talent acquisition lifecycle. And I think you just shed light on so much for us, everything from the sourcing, from your ATS database, and even beyond, with the job boards, you're able to actually identify the matching to your different jobs that you have, everything from that to the CRM, to integrating diversity into your process in a stronger way with insights and intelligence, to even dashboards, as you said, the ability to see your data instead of having to do a manual pull and a big deep dive analysis. You're now able to get access to dashboards and information. And then it just sounds like the process is streamlined and more efficient too. So the intelligence that you get actually impacts every aspect of the life cycle. I think you've shed some great light on that. And I love hearing about the hourly workers too. The fact that AI is very relevant and applicable to improving, your recruiting for hourly workers. Is there anything else? You've shared an incredible amount with us today, TC, appreciate that. Is there anything else that you feel in your experience has been unique and insightful in leveraging AI?
I think when I look at it from our perspective, from the partnership, is AI is really relevant within every single aspect of the life cycle. There was definitely some reluctancy initially because of the heavy hourly workforce environment we have, and how would it be relevant to them? One thing we've learned, the technology itself has really allowed us to bring our strategy to life. And that strategy really enhancing the experience for that hourly workforce. But also, there was reluctancy with our current tech stack. We weren't sure if this would integrate. And, obviously through the project itself, we were able to identify some symmetry between the two platforms. And I think that's allowed us to continue to enhance what we're going to do as an organization in the future.
That's great. Thank you. And I think, Christina, I think we're at the end of our time.
Yeah, we have
So
time
I
for
will-
one audience question that just came in, and this one for you, TC. LKQ is made up of several acquired companies. How did you fold these companies into the HR processes you have today?
It's a fantastic question. LKQ is made up of about 300 acquisitions. So several is is fun. I think we've done several in the past couple of months. But really just having a process is the first piece. About 4.5 years ago, we didn't. It was a very manual, decentralized process. And so as we brought other organizations into the fold and really brought them into the family, we've been able to get them educated on not just our process when it comes to our outreach for new candidates. So I think that's the biggest, having a documented, efficient process.
Fantastic. Well, have a great time in Vegas while you're there. Thank you so much, TC. Thank you so much, Andrea, for hosting this conversation. And really encourage you guys to have a great rest of your summit. We'll see you guys again soon. Thank you so much.